Dzień dobry, witam Państwa na dzisiejszych naszych zajęciach. I would like to welcome all of you on today's lecture. Especially, I want to welcome our visitor professors at our Faculty of Pedagogical Sciences, Nicolaus Copernicus University. Thank you for accepting my invitation. Professor Sabahudin Hadzialic from International University Travnik, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and UNINETTUNO University, Rome, Italy. And also Professor Aiste Urboniere from Vilnius University. We will listen a lecture of Professor Sabahudin's Hadzialic, Freedom and Misuse of Freedom Media. This lecture is transmitted live streaming. Huh? Yes, Professor.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say that I'm very glad to be in Poland. I'm very glad to be here at the Nicolaus Copernicus University upon invitation from our great friend and colleague, Dorota Siemieniecka. She's the main guilty one because I'm going to bore you in an hour and a half. So at the same time, I would like to start this with a usual sentence that I've done to my students in MA studies in both countries that I'm working in. I would like you to prove me that I'm wrong by the end of this lecture. And why I'm saying this? Because all of us should be aware that the most important thing is critical thinking. And to be able to have a critical thinking, we have to live, at least to try to live in a free society. Is there anybody here who would like to tell me what is the meaning of the word freedom? Anyone here? What is freedom for you? Anybody? Okay, we will turn back later on this, but the most important thing is that what will happen if we all can do whatever we want? What do you think? That means we have a total freedom for everything. What would happen? Can anybody tell me that? That's organized anarchy. Can you imagine somebody walking naked on the street? Or just freely enter the shop and take the things and not pay? That is why this is the title of this, let's call it lecture, Freedom and Misuse of Freedom in Media, because we're going to be focused on the issue of media. But the main problem is when my freedom jeopardize somebody else's freedom, that means that it is not freedom anymore. Later on, we will again return to this issue and try to explain it a little bit more further. We're going to go through the different topics. The main topics here are ethical and moral treatment of public and private media, serving the truth or untruth, to inform, entertain, interpret, and fight crime. You will see later on the meaning of the word fight crime. Then, when we come to the problem of ethical and moral treatment of public and private media, freedom can be shut up for just a moment, but cannot be shut for the whole good thing. Freedom shows the quality and beauty of life, but it's not easy achievable. Why I'm saying this? Because if we have some person, we can say only developed person can achieve freedom totally and free. And for the maintaining of the freedom, knowledge and experience is needed responsibility and of course courage. Without measure, there is no freedom. Knowledge and experience enrich human life, and only that abundance makes possible independence. Without that kind of abundance, there is no freedom, only comfort. It is equally bad for the social structure as the whole, and by that for the individuals who are living in that society, if government conducts too much control over the media. somewhere between those two extremes, we can hope and expect to find real balance. I think it's very actual for you when I say that the government try in any country, regardless if we are within so-called socialist or so-called capitalist countries, there are differences, different way of controlling the purposes of the media itself. Please do hear the following sentence. Every man may revise constitutional principles on which authority is based on, draw attention on its mistakes and disadvantages, investigates and reveal its mistakes, and warn fellow citizens on its beautiful consequences. This was told by Thomas Erskine, Scottish jurist and historian, and it has been told 250 years ago. And it's so actual today, at least on certain areas and in certain doses of the prevalence. About government regulations and control of the media, there is no complete harmony, of course, in event in the most democratic society. Problem arises not with preventing the government to be involved in freedom of the media. What to do, I repeat, what to do and in which way prevent the journalists and media abuse and misuse that freedom. Who need to regulate, control and penalize them? Can public does that? Of course, here we have a problem of public capacity to do that. The consciousness, knowledge and awareness. If it happens that public is manipulated by the reason of egoistic and, of course, special interest, but also because of ignorance and immaturity. Public is not something that is unique and compact. Public is divided, complex and uneven within competency. When I say uneven within the competency, that means that when we're talking a lot about public opinion. We say public opinion says that, public opinion says that, but the problem is another thing. The problem is that public opinion is very icky category. Why? Because when we say that we are expecting public opinion on something, we have to first focus on the research, what we are gaining from it. How are we going to come closer to this public? To get it, for example, if it's raining all around the country, if there is a lot of flood, public opinion will be forward to get as much help as possible as soon as possible. But if there is a war in one country, and there is no interest in another country to be involved in a certain issue to make a peace over there in that country, that means that public opinion is somewhere quiet. You know them well when we saw the fights in Syria, currently nowadays, it's so far away from us. But when we have it close to us, within us, that is exactly, completely different. When we come to talk to the public as a whole, we have to be more, let's say, to be more consider youth as something much bigger media consumers. Children are much more exposed to the risk of negative consequences of the influence of media messages, because kids are on a much lower level of development in cognitive, emotional, and moral point of view, and does not have experience in real life for the adequate processing of media messages. But when we leave childhood and enter growing stage, that doesn't mean appropriate media literacy by three reasons. First, many young and adult people does not make progress in development much more than from the level achieved in childhood. Secondly, the life experience of many adults is not so various and substantial to make possible rising of the level of media literacy. Third, gaining of media literacy and through the proper ethical approach requests also develop special abilities and active application of the skills. And that does not come automatically with the age. Can somebody tell me, please, don't be shy, what do you think, what is media literacy? Just one word. Who? You know, in the good old times, when we only had TV sets, you remember your grandma and your grandpa, even your parents, were saying, yes, it is true, it was on media, it was on TV. Remember that? Today we can say, yes, it's true, it was on social networks, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Media literacy is the most important thing if we would like to have society which will create freedom of also use of the media, but also freedom from everything else. Why? Because we will develop critical thinking. The most important thing in every society is developing critical thinking. There is a saying, in the place when everybody thinks the same, nobody thinks at all. You know that you disagree with your family, sometimes, especially with your parents. Especially because I have a daughter of your age, and it's always, oh, you're so boring. That is always boring. That means this disagreement, to establish the proper relationships of opinions, we have to be media literate. But when you come to the university, believing that only truth is what has been said in your family, in your church, or mosque, or whatever, that means we have a problem. Because everything is questioned. Why? For the future benefit of the society in general. To be able to develop much stronger, much quality way of living the society. It can be seen that media professionals are recognized as having a vital role to play in social mobilization around the rights of children, as I said before. One of the difficulties facing journalists is that they operate in an increasingly commercial environment. Threats to children generate emotive responses which can be harnessed to capture readers and audiences. How well do their job depends as much upon their personal skills and knowledge as it does upon the medium they work through. Influence on the kids and use and misuse of the media with the kids, especially today, in a sense that we have social networks that are so socially innovative, that we are so confused because the laws that controls the internet has a totally free access to everybody in every corner of the world shows us what? Organized anarchy. Because we cannot stop anybody to watch whatever they want, wherever they want. And sometimes we ask ourselves, maybe it is the point of theory of conspiracy, that somebody did it by purpose to be able to control us in this way, or that way, or another way. But being media literate, that means that I will be able to watch and see every information with my own eyes, with a certain points of understanding how the things are in the world. How I can help for the world to be further developed. You can see this cartoon here in front of you. When somebody thinks about media freedom, he thinks in a sense that I would like to free it. But when I get free, I can lock myself in a sense of understanding what the real freedom is. Why I'm saying this? Because it's not freedom for me to do whatever I want, but to do everything possible to make me to become a better member of the society. In a sense, not to following the wrong roads that will lead to the manipulation, that will lead to the abuses, but to lead to the use of all proper tools which help me as a member of the group to develop the society itself. Privacy is a very undefined concept. It is not easy defining. General stand is that right to privacy means the right of the individual to be left alone, or the right to have control about unwanted publicity in relations with personal issues. Ethical dilemma appears when it has to be decided where to draw the line between reasonable and unreasonable behavior of the media. We are against that government is spying on their citizens. You know the story. But we are ready to tolerate TV cameras and two-way mirrors that deter us from the stealing in the shops. We have to ethically consider that all humans are private, but also social beings. And when those two beings are in collision, the question arises to professional journalists. How much should I relieve on to public and avoid harming somebody else's privacy? The question is tough one, really. Right on privacy becomes ethical question within complex urban society, which still appreciates individual autonomy. Within the modern society, right on privacy became to be legal, but at the same time also moral concept. Can somebody tell me, is there a difference between ethics and morality? Do you know? Does anybody know? What's the difference between moral and ethics?
Moral is something that everybody should have inside himself.
Okay, what about the ethics?
And the ethics is a law for everyone.
Close. Good. The issue is that ethics is the science about morality. But sometimes, very often, the moral things doesn't need to be ethical. Because moral things are related to tradition. Moral things are related to a certain point of view. But ethical things, especially in media, in fight for the freedom. As I said at the beginning of this lecture, I said that I can use my freedom, but if my freedom will jeopardize somebody else's freedom, that is not freedom anymore. There are lots of examples. Okay, let's be direct and say, when, for example, I was in Iraq just 2 months before the Assoc has happened, February 2014. And I've seen that the culture that is old 300 years has destroyed the culture that is old 6,000 years. You know about what culture I'm talking about. That means they wanted to develop democracy in a sense. Just to tell you, I'm writing for the American journals. I'm a member of the editorial board of an American journal. But the issue of bringing the freedom to somebody was very questionable. Because now they are crying for the previous things which has happened before they arrived over there, trying to give them a freedom. That means they jeopardize somebody else's freedom to be able to bring the free society. I'm usually saying that the United States of America is not the, exporting democracy, they're exporting globalization in the sense of having globalized world around us. But also happens regardless in any way we are thinking. You can see the difference between socialism and capitalism. Is that similar? Even in media? During socialist time, the media have been used and abused by whom? But one party. In capitalism, media has been used and abused by commerciality. For example, today, party will not be the one who will say media go down. Let's control. But no, they will stop advertisement in indirect way and say, no, you won't get advertisement to the party connections. At the same time, in that case, we will use and abuse our freedom to be presented in media. Now I'm going to make a joke. I hope that you will understand. You know for me, what is the difference between one-party society and multi-party society? Can you tell me, what's the difference between one-party society and multi-party society? I'll tell you. Multi-party society is group sex. Because you never know how the freedom can be jeopardized as well as the multi-party society, and how it can repeat itself in any kind of manner. When we come back to the privacy, for example, we have euthanasia in prime time, pornography in cyberspace, terrifying photos in local newspapers. Those are just some of the controversial themes reflect sensitivity of the people that might be described as morally harsh content. The newest, and could be said, most blooded combat with pornography and obscenity is within cyberspace. Internet is endless market of ideas, most purest shape of democracy. The biggest part of debate is about possibility that children easily can access to pornography, and many of children has more computer literacy than their parents, but not emotionally ready for what they are going to see. When we speak, then, in other words, about offensive speech in media, we have different kind of alliances, interesting ones. Request for censorship comes from conservatives as well from liberals. We have to make very, very nice distinction here. You have liberals also, you have conservatives, but you will very often see that sometimes they play similarly on certain issues. Because when it comes to the point of final issue, they all are relying on voters. And they have to think at least 5 to 10 years ahead of them to be able to think how they will react afterwards. But they play on the most important role on this short memory of the people. People have very short memory. You know, when you get fight with your colleagues in class about something, verbally, you just argue about something, next morning you'll have a cup of coffee, like something, nothing has happened. The most, in cognitive meaning sense, the most bad thing for us humans is that we have very short memory. We keep forgetting even because something bad happens to us. An example, war in Bosnia. I was there 35 years ago. I've seen it with my own eyes what has gone on all 3 sides, what has been done. And 30 years afterwards, I'm still trying to put that aside of me, because it was very bad experience. That's in every human. That's the meaning, how we can try to make a distinction about this issue. So, is there a contradiction in the actor if we say that public and private should be protected, and at the same time we say that we have to know and how to bridge it, if any? Why I'm saying this? We all of us know celebrities. All of us knows that we have paparazzis, that in media, that there are people who likes to be online, who likes to be on TV, who likes to be on radio, but at the same time they ask for their privacy. And they play. How many times you have seen that very important actor, for example, has attacked journalists? At the same time, they are inviting them publicly to follow them, but when they come, they say, no, I don't want you. That's also the game of manipulation. By achieving, there are a lot of different kinds of way of manipulating. By trying to gain as much as possible acceptance, visibility, to be in media, to be in public, but at the same time be against it. Those are the most dangerous ones. Those are the ones who really likes to be everywhere. Who said, I don't want it to be recorded, to be filmed, but at the same time their PR office is sending millions and millions of emails to be there. Excellent example of use and misuse in this context is current debate in current what's going on in the United States of America between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. As a matter of fact, Americans, friends of mine, are saying this is spectacle. In America, United States of America, we have mediocrity. That means that media has been used and abused by the politics and vice versa. Willingly. Because it's not in online, if it's not on TV, on social networks, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchats, whatever, Facebook, that doesn't exist anymore. But the biggest problem, as I said here, is how to be media literate enough to be able to see if something has been used for the purposes of benefits or the purposes of our own. What's going on in America right now, it's not a conflict between 2 different ideologies. It's a conflict between 2 same level of controlling the money market. Because in one thing, you have Hillary Clinton, who is Democrat, and Donald Trump, who is Republican. But can anybody tell me the real difference? Difference is, of course, on basics that he is against immigrants, he's a little bit racist, he's a little bit sexist, but when some emails of Hillary Clinton has been relieved recently. We have seen that she is for the whole government. This famous Bilderberg Group, or Committee 300, or the Rothschilds, etc. All those conspiracy theories that you heard. But us also, of course, as a scientist, would like to focus on the empiric state of it. How to defend it. Theory of conspiracy doesn't exist, but works. Choosing between two evils, it's up to the American society. If they didn't choose Ben Sanders, which is personally for me, was the best option, because he wanted to have a health system and everything to be equal to Finland and Sweden and Norway, most European countries, then somebody else can be something different. I will let you see first this cartoon here. Morality is multi-sided thing. A state of character that derives from rationalism and mysticism, from personal and social concern, and from habitual, virtuous acts based on concern for consequences or predetermined principles. It is part rational and part emotional. It is part deterministic and part instinctive. It is a part egoistic and part social. It is part secular and part religious. Being ethical then is theoretically relative. There are communicators, Machiavellians, in heart, who in strong pragmatism and care little for humanistic ethics. They have a selfish motivation. Something that works is better than something that doesn't. Results dominate over principle. Other Machiavellians of a different kind are mass communicators. They may be called Cautilians, wanting to use any means necessary to achieve an altruistic end. In India, at least 5 centuries before Machiavelli, a political advisor, Kautilya, mixed pragmatism with the compassion for the poor, for women and slaves. Today, we have the public service Cautilians and the egocentric Machiavellians. It seems that all journalists are to some degree Machiavellians or one of both types, thriving on the scoop and the big story regardless of how they manage to get it, to give them personal or institutional prestige or to serve some segments of the public. For example, when we have wars, every party in the war says, God is on our side. So I just ask myself, when we say God is on our side, how many gods we have? Anyway, because God is only one. We just call him differently. It's an excellent example also for the former Yugoslavia. You know what is former Yugoslavia, I hope so. Because when I was in England, they were asking me, oh yes, we know, Czechoslovakia, yes we know. Former Yugoslavia is in Southeast Europe. And there is a very nice issue how the misuse and use of media is presented in former Yugoslavia. Through the language. If somebody comes from Croatia and tells you that he speaks only Croatian, if somebody comes from Serbia and tells you that he speaks only Serbian, if somebody comes from Montenegro and tells you that he speaks only Montenegrin, or from Bosnia and Herzegovina, that he comes and says that he speaks only Bosnian language, they are all liars. Why? Especially in media which are so brainwashed in a sense within the country. That's why whenever I'm in any of these countries, I'm saying that I'm speaking South Slavic language and counting all those 4 languages. Why? Because if one language is equal to 60%, it's one language. In former Yugoslavia, those languages are 85% equal. We do not need interpreter, but because of nation equal language, it's like in England. You have, can you imagine if somebody from Ireland would call, instead of English, Irish language? They have some certain dialects, but they cannot, it's only difference is like this. They speak, but the media has been under control, brainwashed, in the sense of understanding that we should fight for the interaction, to help possibility to exist as the human beings regardless of the background of the languages. So the funny question is really why the God is not only a proper, honest, balanced, and truthful side, and he's also all sides, as we can see. So, the real truth in communication is the truth that is created by encoders, refined by communicators, and formed by audiences. Behind these communicated truths may be the real world, but our communicators and audiences will never see it. And it may be a good thing that they don't. It would be too much for the person to bear. Seeing the real world in all its detail would send humanity into the psychotic transfer. The consideration of the purpose of the media varies from medium to medium, from society to society. But we can assume that media want to inform, entertain, and interpret. The entertaining purpose offers the greatest ethical danger. The ethical assumption is that media will be honest, fair, balanced, and truthful in their efforts. But the pragmatic assumption, a moralistic one, is that media will serve their owners and interests, provide a propaganda outlet for some special elite, or do what is necessary to survive or serve to the public interest. After looking at ethical codes around the world, it is fair to say that the most common ethical imperative seems to be truth-telling. Truth, of course, means many things to different media, and also in different countries. And I will go back to this issue of morality. What is moral in one language is immoral, in one country is immoral in another country. Can you imagine yourself, especially ladies, to come in short skirts in Saudi Arabia? Are you going to survive a day? Hardly. But at the same time, some other things that are morally accepted in other countries are not accepted in maybe some countries on other continents, for example. You have to be very careful finding a way how to communicate as well with others that are not within your culture as well. Why? Because the morality of somebody might abuse you within your society if you present it in a way you want to be presented. In my country, if I present my country, maybe Italy, maybe Bosnia-Herzegovina, whatever, for Yugoslavia, it's a very moral thing. Is to, when you meet, when you are being introduced to some woman, to kiss her hand. But if you come and kiss her hand when you will be introduced to somebody without knowing the person in some other culture, it might be very insulting. Because in China, in Japan, they are very reluctant in touching each other, in the sense if they are not friends. That's another issue. Let's go back to the issue of this lecture. One ethics scholar has written that journalists who falsify, embellish, and plagiarize their stories are guided by a philosophic framework called ethical egoism. Myself, as John Merrill as well, disagree with this. Such a journalist does not have anything with ethics whatsoever. We should call the unethical journalist by the proper label, unethical, or maybe ethical nihilist. You know, usually journalists who abuse media for this kind of purposes say, public wants this, yellow journalism. Public would like to hear this. Public would like to read about this. But the real issue is that the public need a real truth. First of all, we have all to agree on an issue of truth. Truth is, can somebody tell me? What is truth in Polish society? In general meaning, the meaning of truth. What is truth?
The truth is a lack of lie.
Okay, that's when we say lack of lie, then what is lie? Lack of truth. Yeah. The truth is balanced, honest, based on facts that can be confirmed, storytellings. In journalism, truth varies. Because in yellow journalism, there is a lack of facts and more abusive context in the sense of not achievable things to be checked out. That's why I said that it's first we have to establish in society what is the general truth in meaning, but at the same time, not that truth to be abused by somebody in different purposes, which can be troubled and broadcasted in different kinds of levels in the media. Today, everybody is a journalist. Just open your status on Facebook, have your camera, and you can become a very well citizen journalist. Am I right? Everyone is a poet today. Everybody writes poetry, put it on Facebook. But yet, we haven't defined, and I can say that I'm the guilty one as well, defined possibility how to control the controllers. How to avoid possibility what is in front of us, having in mind that abusive content is everywhere. Meaning that on Facebook, you are first faced with abusive content, and then you can complain and ask somebody to raise somebody's, or anywhere in it. The main issue is media literacy. Somebody. Better. But I have a voice pretty loud. You can hear me. But how to solve the abuse of media, like when we talk about this existential journalism, in current journalism in social networks. Media literacy, introduction of media literacy starting from the 8th grade of primary school, then to the high school, because all of you, when you come to university, we are only shaped persons by your environment, by your family, if you are believers by a church or whoever, some association. But at the same time, you are still lacking of real critical thinking. And you can be easily abused and controlled by the media, because we all know if one lie is repeated 9 times, the 10th time it becomes a truth. Media literacy is the main and most important thing for every human being. To know how to read the media. To know how to access the media. To know how to survive through the media. Because just check out yourself now. You remember how many times you entered the supermarket and you bought at least 2 things that you haven't planned to buy. Because of the manipulation through the media, that show the advertisement at certain points, that it's back on your head, saying, you need to buy it, you need to buy it, you need to buy it. And finally, you come and you don't buy even the things that you came to buy it. But with media literacy, you are able to use the media in proper way and to avoid to be the part of mediocrity, not mediocrity, mediocrity which can control you in an abusive way. Is the truth ethical or non-ethical issue when it comes to everyday pragmatism of journalism? In every society, as you can see on this cartoon, especially, for example, in China, or in any capitalistic or any socialistic society, politicians doesn't like a truth. They will tell you, check out as journalists, 5 years from now, what any politician has said. And you will see how it differs, how they change their stance about certain issues, how some of them even change completely their opinions. They do not evolve, they just adjust themselves. And they would like you to forget it. That's why, thank God, and I propose you, for you, maybe some of you will be the future journalists, not only the teacher of the school of journalism, but I would like to recommend you to say, to live, using internet in a way to Google, to find, to to always question everything. Question me, question everybody, question. Put a question on it to see if that person or persons that use a media have said the same thing now or I think 5 years ago. Example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, back in 1999, there was a prime minister who said on the front cover of the page of the main newspaper daily, next year 50,000 people will be employed. You know what has happened next year? 50,000 but less jobs in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And according to the short memory of the people, the same guy, after he left the politics, became the chairman of Islamic community of Bosnia and Herzegovina. That means they play on a short memory of the people. If the people are media literate, they won't be able to be so short-sighted and thinking about some things that cannot influence them. We just have to check out and see how somebody did this or that towards us. We are all living in two worlds. Reality one and the world of media. Especially with the new media, where we sometimes escape from the real to virtual world of social media, become to be something virtual. Because we all well, especially the problem of abuse of the media on portals are the nicknames. The main problem are the nicknames. If we're going to have the real use of free democracy in media in the sense of internet, we have to be persons. Because the same persons who wrote any abusive things on portals are in the real world something else. But if they put their names first, they will not be so abusive on internet portals so much as they are in the real world. And they hide behind these nicknames, and you all notice that, especially on social networks, when there are a lot of fake status, a lot of fake approaches, a lot of fake presentations, which can be easily manipulate us on this issue. Of course, there are limitations established to the media, and limitation is a result of social norms. We can read it as ethical behaviors. Media limitations are limited in the media, of course, depending on which media story will be presented: TV, radio, newspaper, internet. Social limitations are linked with certain expectations by the side of the audience, what is entertainment and what is not. That limit of expectation is visible when the audience find themselves insulted by media content and reacts, especially when it's the question illicit behavior, sex scenes, and violence. How many times you've heard from your parents, you should not watch that movie, there is too much sex scene. And immediately, it raises a question with you, oh, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it because I have been forbidden to do it. Instead of sitting, talking, discussing of the right time where we will watch it or not, we are putting the borders and barriers, and it creates something opposite very often. But as society evolves, limitations do also. Ethical evolves also, depending about what kind of society we are talking about. For example, can you imagine 15 years ago that even one pope would even start to talk about homosexualism? But now today, my good old Pope Francis, he talks about that very openly. That means he starts to talk about certain issues that used to be questionable in the past. So don't be afraid to see. This is an excellent use of media that the latest Catholic Church leader is doing. Not abuse, use of the media. Because he knows the power of the media, and he's very often making even press conferences in the planes. You've all seen it. It thinks that everything evolves, even ethics within the religion. Can you imagine that 25 years ago, there were people that couldn't vote? Women didn't have right to vote just 8 years ago. In the 60s, United States of America, black people could not vote. My colleague quoted Martin Luther King. Recently, he was the one fighter for the freedom of the voting for the black people. That means, in general meaning of sense of freedom, freedom will not get to us freely. We have, I will quote Eric Fromm, that said, there is no total freedom. But there is an excellent position that will always fight for the freedom. But there is nothing more beautiful than the sense of fighting in your way, of working in your way, of being a part of the society, to gain the freedom, and not to be afraid to talk about it even in the media. Because we are hypocrites. You know, as students, that sometimes we say something to our colleagues, but we do something else. Correct me if I'm wrong. Very often. The main point, and I can stand, I said, don't trust me, just go do it. The main point to be a good fighter for the freedom is to have a stand, to keep to the stand. Whatever you say, you write, and you think about it. But today, hypocrisy means I think one thing, I say another thing, and I literally implement the third thing. If you are the one person in it all, you are a real fighter for the freedom. If you don't trust, you just try to find some articles of mine in your Asia Review magazine, you will see how it looks like and how it reflects what I'm telling you and what I'm writing, especially for the wider public. That's why I would like to invite you, for all of you tomorrow. We're going to have a promotion of with the guest speakers of my colleague professor from the States tomorrow at 5 o'clock in the Media Center. Will be promotion of my book Southeast Europe at the Age of Civilization. It will be live from Skype, my colleague professor from States, and we'll talk about the contents of how to be at the age of civilization. There's one saying, I will just make one small. When Slovenia entered the European Union, we said that Slovenia is at the gate of Europe. But there was a joke in Bosnia and Herzegovina at that time. Slovenia at the gate of Europe, Bosnia and Herzegovina at the asshole of Europe. Why? It was the guilty. We were the guilty ones because of the use and abuse of the media in this sense. Our media in that time was so against coming to the Europe, gaining and be part of the Europe. Why? Because it is controlled by politicians, and being controlled by politicians, that means if we enter the European Union, we will have a rule of law, not law of rule that politicians would like to have. And the abuse of media controlled by politicians was always afraid if they entered Europe, 9 of 10 of them will be arrested for the corruption, for cheating, for stealing. And now, finally, we got invitation, and we hope that from the next year we'll start negotiation, and we'll become a part of the Europe as you are already, with a lot of gains, but at the same time there are a lot of difficulties, of course, as every country goes through. I will now do some blasphemy. When we talk about the newspaper, I'm usually saying we live the myth of the newspaper. For example, what does it mean, newspaper? News is made in journalist's brain and can be anything particular. Journalist wants to consider news. From a bird falling from a tree to a powerful explosion in Iraq. As usual, I'm telling to my students, the broken glass is the news if you know how to properly present it. At least there's an understanding of what is not the news. Advertising, editorials, feature stories, letters, essays, puzzles, and comics and other entertainment pieces. Entertainment is that a process in people's mind, exploits human despair and imperfection. Ethically, in one hand, it relaxes people's mind and takes it miles away from the real life, but in the other hand, the fake joy lasts as the show or story lasts. Ethically, if we go to the interactive games, we all know that we all play the games, computer games, we have also a possibility of the opening of new worlds. It's funny how it has been interacted between high science knowledge and interactive games in sitcom Big Bang Theory within the last couple of years. I don't know, and I hope that you have seen the Big Bang Theory, this sitcom that everybody watches in that kind of way. Why is that so funny? Because it uses the media to make so-called sciences much easier approachable to the wider public. There are also a lot of scenes that provokes certain moral issues, certain ethical issues, but never abuses the media. Very short, 20 minutes show will show all of us what really presentation of sitcom means. Ethically, if the players of interactive games use digital games as a possibility to increase their experience, widen the frames of their lives and get into the deeper knowledge about themselves, it will help to develop media literacy as well. And by that, help them to survive better in this world, because in the game, failures are quickly forgotten and we continue from the beginning again. But there is always but. Dependence, which is very harmful. Dependence connotes that people become slaves of the games and lose ability of self-discipline. Conflict of the values. In one of the part of the ethical spectrum, a journalistic association which does not encourage belonging of engagement within social organizations. On the other end of the ethical spectrum are those who are encouraging civil engagement and activism as the means to stay in touch with the needs of the community, and by all means to develop relations with the sources of information. Maybe the best approach to solve the conflict of these two different values is the rule of common sense. Sensitivity is close friend to ethics. Journalists must be connected with the dynamics of their community. For example, Afro-Americans are very often shown as people living on welfare and deals with trade and narcotics, as poor and uneducated. Also, immigrants recently have been shown in media as dirty, obnoxious, nervous people who are almost conquered some of our countries in Europe. Instead of solving the causes, we are dealing with the consequences. Ethically, talking about, for example, women stereotypes, elderly people, sexual orientation, disabled persons is very sensitive, and that is the beauty of real professional journalism. Why? Because to combat against stereotypes is to win a battle against narrow-minded surroundings, which is just one step from doing direct harm to somebody who is other and different one. Our picture of others is usually our own reflection hidden deeply inside of us. So, interesting question you can see on the screen. When we come to the explanation of the word Vicar, it says 5 different meanings: freedom, individualism, commitment, what else? Action and responsibility. In regards to existential journalism, we mentioned earlier, and I left it for the end of today's lecture, to encircle our presentation, I say that this encircles freedom, individualism, commitment, and also action and responsibility. The first letter, freedom, is essential. But the last one, responsibility, must control and curtail this freedom. So freedom of the journalist, and by that of the press, is essential, and we wonder why. Due to the Committee to Protect Journalists, has been killed 1,190 journalists since 1992. And so far, in this year, 31 of them has been killed. 199 imprisoned, and 456 in exile since 2008. They have not been killed because they have been fighting as a soldiers. They have been killed because they would like to inform the public about the fighting between soldiers. A free press is fundamental to a democratic society. It seeks out and circulates news, information, ideas, comment, and opinion, and holds those in authority to account. The press provides the platform for a multiplicity of voices to be heard at national, regional, and local level, as it is a public watchdog, activist and guardian, as well as educator, entertainer, and contemporary chronicle. When we say action and responsibility, that means that my action as a journalist will not jeopardize somebody else's action. I will not abuse the media in a sense that I will present something without presenting the facts, honest and balanced information. And that leads to responsibility. First of all of us are responsible to our moral and ethical senses, to our habitus. Because the real professional journalist would never publish a lie. Because, like a boomerang, one day it will come back to him and will be direct hit, and it can murder him for the future benefits, not only of his, but of his public. You can say, everybody knows Christian Amanpour. Yeah. When you say Christian Amanpour, we all know that she's a presenter of real journalism. Have you ever heard that Christian Amanpour has broadcasted the fake news? No. But you can't tell me the name of the person who did it, because it's water under the bridge. Very soon it's forgotten. That's the purpose of the being an honest presenter, honest establisher and founder of the real information in the media. When we come to the point, this FICA issue, there is one very interesting thing, that you have to be ready, if you're going to use the media for the benefit of the society, that you will be abandoned. You will be put aside because you are a freelancer. You are freelancer. You don't deal with any party. You fight for the freedom. You would like to show the existence can exist without being connected to the party. But we all know that in these societies, in capitalist and social society, okay, you're going to get a job. Join the party. Join the party, you will get your job. Join the party, you will become a minister. But by using those 5 words, as real journalist, you will not die like on this cartoon here. You will be a beacon for yourself and somebody else, in the sense of establishing the journalism that will be respected. At the end of the day, only truth counts. All other things, regardless the stories and gossips and everything, it's water under the bridge. Nicolaus Copernicus is not water under the bridge. He was the one who said the real truth at the beginning, almost faced with a lot of problems in his time. But today, Nicolaus Copernicus is a beacon in the sense of having the possibility to present heliocentric system in general. But the real use and abuse of freedom in media lies in all of us. All depends on our professional, ethical, and moral behavior. Please, don't let be abused by the media. Use it for the benefit of goods. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'm ready to shoot, don't feel.
Thank you, Professor, for a very interesting lecture about importance of truth in the media, and you showed us that there is a need to search for the values, yes, for the values. So thank you so much for presentation. Proszę Państwa, jeszcze raz podziękujmy profesorowi za wspaniały wykład, który mieliśmy okazję przed chwilą wysłuchać. Jeszcze raz zabrać mi pana profesora. Za Waszą obecność na wykładzie i zapraszam Państwa, ponieważ właśnie przed chwilą dostałam informację od Pani tutaj z rektoratu, że umowa między uniwersytetem, który reprezentuje Pan Profesor, Uniwersytetem w Travnik, Uniwersytet Bośnia-Hercegowina, umowa została podpisana. W tej chwili pracujemy nad umową Erasmusową. Państwo będziecie mieli możliwości wyjazdu, uczelnia oferuje wiele kursów, takich w języku angielskim oczywiście, także zapraszam Państwa do zainteresowania się takimi możliwościami jeszcze, póki nie skończyliście Państwo jeszcze studiów. Wiem, że niektórzy z Was kontynuują na inne kierunki, więc jeszcze macie taką Państwo możliwość. Jeszcze raz bardzo Wam dziękuję, zapraszam Was do Bardzo dziękuję.